Bum, 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 bum. Ah. No, it's not here. Mm. Hello everybody and welcome to this first streaming for the Krita YouTube channel. I'm glad to meet you. There's enough people to start the streaming session. So obviously this is not what I'm used to do. I'm most used to create stuff with painting, so this TV stuff is really weird for me in the technical stuff. Okay, so if I made some mistakes, sorry, and I hope you enjoy this little stream session. There is a lot of things that I want to share with you. If everything works okay, just thumbs up, please, and I receive the feedback that I need to start the session. Okay. Thanks, Scott. Okay, so following some advices from other users, I'm going to explain the stuff, and if you have questions, you can do on the chat. There is, I think, Scott is very professional to answer all the questions related with Krita. If he wants to help me, he is allowed to do that and to answer the questions. Or if Bodewin or Wolfera or TR is around there, just be free to answer all the questions, okay? The main idea of these streaming sessions is just to have more in touch with the community, okay? So maybe the painting is not gonna be so amazing, but I think the good thing is a real-time communication, and we enjoy this time to be together, okay? So as you can see, there is an image on the screen, and this is not a watercolor, obviously. Okay, this is only to explain one thing. that you can have. Hi, Bodewin. It's a pleasure to see you there in the chat. It's an honor to have the main Krita developer helping answering questions. So this is the moment you can use to make hard questions because he is very proficient and knows a lot about Krita, obviously. Okay, I see it here also, so we have a very good base to answer questions. So I'm gonna just focus on painting something and explain some things that I think is relevant to Digital Atelier. So I don't know if there is a lot of people here or all the people that bought the resources pack. Digital Atelier was created to emulate oil painting, pastel, and watercolor, and that means it's not a very for beginners if they want to understand how the brushes work, but they can use very well just for painting. Okay, so if you are trying to emulate oil painting on watercolor or stuff like this that requires a complex behavior, it's a lot of faster and easier to buy the Atelier set in the Krita shop. Okay. Thanks a lot for being here. I see there is more and more people. So the first thing that I want to say is that we have two different modes to handle the opacity and flow in Krita. And as I teach Krita as a professional trainer or teacher, in my classes I found that this can be a bit confusing. Okay, so we are going to explain this a bit, because for Digital Atelier is a bit important to see how this affect the brushes. That means you can use Digital Atelier brushes, of course. You can use in a new image. Okay, so we're going to create an image, and by default the brushes works okay. There is no problem to use the brushes, but there are subtle differences with the two different modes, because the opacity handles in different way. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to show you is just to show you what happens when we are using each mode. So I have here, for example, this brush, which is used to create gradients. And you can see as I press more, I have no opacity. It's a very easy way to blend colors. Okay, just have a color and then press and magically blends. Well, not magically, but you get the idea. This is, for example, it's more obvious in this kind of brush stroke. Okay, you can see the effect. So as you can see, there is not too much texture feeling in the brush stroke itself, and that is because it is using the creamy mode. Okay, this creamy mode tries to soften the difference between the opacity and the flow, general speaking. Okay, so when we are trying to emulate the watercolor and oil painting, this is totally the thing that we don't want to achieve. Okay, so for digital painting with creamy mode is very good, because we can do things like that easily. With a normal brush, we have something like this, and we start to paint, increasing the opacity, reducing the opacity, and it's more creamy. If we reduce the flow, okay, sorry, flow, I mean, okay, you see the creamy effect. If we do that in the other mode that Krita has, the results for this kind of painting, the concept art, for example, are going to be really different. There are other softwares that handles the opacity and flow in different way. There is no good or grown mode. Okay, we deal with cons and advantages in each mode. And the good thing is that in Krita we can choose the mode we need for the kind of painting that we are working on. Okay, so the mode is in settings, configure Krita, and we can see in general, in tools, you can see I'm using the creamy mode, which was released for Krita 4.2 earlier versions. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is just go into the past and the Krita 4.1 and earlier version and click and accept. Sadly for me, and this is a wish list for me, this will be impressive if change it in real time, the mode, but we have to go here and restart Krita. Okay, we need to restart Krita to see the effect. Just a few seconds. As you can see, I'm using the latest release, so pray for not crashing. Okay, so this is the template to make watercolor, and you can see if I create a new document. Okay, the effect is gonna be really different. Okay, I have the good opacity and flow for concept art, for example, to create different planes of depth. But if I reduce the flow, something appears like these edges that are different. Okay, you can see this. We have lost the creamy mode, but this is not bad, because we have recovered the kind of overlapped brushstroke, which is important to emulate the watercolor effect, because we are using a trick called subtract mode. Okay, Krita 4 released a series of brushes that use this kind of setup, and you can see in this mode. Okay, if I remember well, was this brush tip? Okay, we are using the subtract, and obviously this is not really easy to understand for a beginner, but a mid-level or advanced user can understand perfectly. We are quitting opacity from the brushstroke, okay, and this way we can create a very beautiful effects with watercolor. For example, if we use now the Digital Atelier, okay, I'm filtering, just I'm not using the tag in this case, okay, because it's faster to have all the brushes available and then just using the prefix DA, and you have, boom, all your Digital Atelier brushes are here. And it's even faster if you want to use the watercolor. Okay, then you have only watercolor brushes, filter it, just writing a few letters. Okay, and that is a very good system for Krita, and not get lost with a lot of brushes coming from another sets, for example. Okay, so as I was saying, this is important because if we want to create this kind of effect, okay, we need to have this overlapped effect, okay? And this is much better because the brush tips overlap each other. So this creates the illusion that we have much more content and we have more texture to play with. Okay, what do you think about this? Did you know that Krita has 2 different modes? Just tell me in the chat and I read the comments later, okay? The watercolor brushes are really tricky because Krita can simulate the fluid behavior, okay? This is out of a scope of Krita because it's a different topic. But we can cheat a bit this kind of technique to create this kind of effects. So in this Digital Atelier brush pack, we have this one, for example, and you can see it's rough. It's a rough behavior, okay? You can see rough edges, but this is when you use a watercolor brush stroke, okay? So it's a brush stroke, but it's dry. So for example, it's useful when we want to let me check. Okay, watercolor, because I have some examples to show you. Watercolor, okay. This is based on a watercolor done by Joseph Zbubik. This is one of the best. Okay, so you are gonna see this kind of behavior here. Okay, if you want to simulate this kind of brushstroke, it's a dry brushstroke, but obviously watercolor is a liquid medium. Okay, so we use this to get this kind of effect. Okay, can you see how the brushstroke is reproducing the effect? Well, this is very used in watercolor, okay, because we apply a wash and then create the effects once the layer is dried. We just create this kind of lines, these rough lines, to create detail over this scene, okay? And this way we can create, for example, some lines to define cars or define people or stuff like that. We can just define things, but not with a pencil. Obviously, we are defining with dry watercolor, because watercolor can handle different types of brushstrokes. It can use wet over wet, wet over dry, dry over wet. So you can play a lot with these techniques. Krita cannot do that. Dimula 73. Abracadabra. Okay. Well, I'm reading some comments. So if you don't understand something, you can see there's a lot of people answer questions. Okay. So basically, watercolor tries to use all the potential of the grain of the paper, and that is something that we use also when we are using this kind of set. We are using the paper, the power of paper, okay? because if you make watercolor over a flat surface, you lost a lot of kind of brush strokes, different effects, because the paint is interacting with the paper. Okay. Am I very technical or too much technical with this? And do you want to just paint and forget the explanations, or just let me know in the comments or the chat? Okay. So we apply here a layer with color, and we can just start to create some interesting effects. Okay, Digital Atelier was prepared and designed to have a wide range of users. Okay, so for example, if I make something more like illustration and not so fine arts, I can use also this brush, okay, which is reduces the opacity as we are going over and over until remove all the paint. Okay, and this is achieved by the subtractive mode, as I was explaining before. Okay, so you have this subtract, and you are using this brush tip to remove the opacity at a certain level, and those levels are just driven by this value here and this value here. So the interaction of two values and curves makes the illusion of watercolor. Another thing that can contribute the illusion of watercolor is this. Have you seen the effect? I'm gonna paint something happier. Do you see the color variation? Okay, this is produced because we are changing the color dynamics here. Okay, as we understand how color is applied, we just think about, let's make it a bit darken with less pressure and a bit brighter. Okay, you can see how the color varies. Okay, and it's rougher even here, but it's on the range. Okay, so if you are playing with oranges, you can have a bit of red or pink, because it's wow. This is very, very good. The link will go when Ramon is done. Jesus, that's a very good offer. So if you are not getting used to complex brushes, this is a very good opportunity to have all the set, and I think it's just for free. Oh man, we are getting crazy. That's just a very good news. Okay, so share it on social media, because I try to make something a bit larger than expected. Okay, but this is for about an hour, remember. Okay, that's the trick, and playing with color dynamics and using the subtract mode. You may think that you need a lot of different brush tips and elements to create this kind of things, but in fact I was using not too much different brush tips, and because Krita is so flexible that can create a lot of different brushes with when we know the right behavior. Okay, so for example, imagine that you like this brush, but you want to have another kind of grain or another kind of shape because it's different. Okay, the grain, the way that the opacity is reduced is controlled by the secondary brush tip. Okay, so if we use this kind of effect, look at this. We have changed dramatically the effects of the brush stroke, right? This is totally different. We can increase the flow just a bit, and it's like more rougher effect. And if we want to have, for example, in the brush tip, we can use, for example, this one, and we have another different effect. If we increase, this is important, if we increase the brush size, we also increase the secondary brush tip. So we need to understand this, because sometimes the grain we achieve is achieved by the size of the secondary brush tip. Okay, let me show you with an example, but just take a look here. How beautifully is this? Obviously, this is not the fastest brush you can get with Krita, because you are using practically everything in Krita. Okay, so look at that. We can just have this and override, and we can save this or as another brush or whatever you want to do, because it's really easy to create new brushes. And I designed this set for people to create new brushes, because we thinking about this, we can have maybe 200 people creating different brushes, and it's very good for everybody. Okay, this is a good question. Jack the Vulture. Have you considered releasing the version that just the brushes without the videos and vice versa? Okay, so you have the Krita maintainer here. You can ask directly. Okay, this way we can create this kind of effect. Maybe we want to create clouds. But if we want to create clouds, maybe we would just use the other brush, this, which is more controllable. And you can see this overlapping effect, right? So do you know how to avoid this effect? We can use the grader mode. So I can't remember exactly what is the grader mode. Maybe in the chat somebody can ask this question. So if I use the grader mode, which I use a lot, maybe let me check. Grader, some miscellaneous or mathematic or mix grader. Okay, you can see here, and if you tick this box, you get the grader mode. Okay, you get the grader mode available in your favorites, and this way you don't have to look for the grader mode again and again and again. Okay, and if I apply another brush stroke, look at this. I don't have any edges. Okay, and I can paint a very large surface, but this is limited by the opacity, because grader uses the opacity to compare what can I paint and what I cannot paint. Okay, so if I want to make, for example, clouds here, I can use the eraser mode, just pressing the E key, and now I'm just creating clouds with the same brush, same behavior. Okay, so we are creating something like this. It's like you removing the color with some drag or cotton or whatever. It absorbs the liquid. Okay, but for this purpose, I created this kind of brush which uses eraser mode by default, because remember, this is modified brush. If we restore the brush, we are painting again. The good thing of these brushes is that I can have, for example, let's make a bit purple here, and as I press harder, I can have this kind of effect. It's a subtle effect. Okay, but if I press just slightly, I have these rough edges, okay, hard edges and soft edges on the same brush stroke. And this is important to understand because we are always making brush strokes. When we paint like concept art, we are making a lot of different brush strokes. But in watercolor specifically, we need to understand that we need to control just the pressure and the length of the brush stroke and enjoy how the beautiful color spreads and you see the effect. Okay? At least I enjoy a lot watching this kind of behavior. And the good thing of this is that we can use this to remove, and we are creating the effect and make this looser. Okay, but as I was saying, I created specifically brushes to do this. This one, for example, the remove water, uses this kind of effect. And be careful with this brush, because if we press slightly, we can remove a lot of different water. Okay, we remove all the color just pressing slightly. If we press harder, we create this kind of effect. Okay, and for that reason, I created this kind of eraser. It's like just like stamping some rough paper, or it's like the inverse. As you can see here, we can use this to create particles. Okay, but we are removing color this way. Are you enjoying the live stream? And also, for some situations, we need to blend the edges. Okay, imagine we need to blend here, so we use the blend brush, the blender edges, to create this. Okay, and we can blend the color. Okay, and you can see here. So if you are asking yourselves who created the stamp, the brush tip, was Pablo Cazorla, and I think it's one of the best brush tip I ever tried. So nice. And what else? What else? What kind of crazy effect would you like to that I show you in the live stream? Because you can see, let me show you just a trick. If you want to create, for example, like a removal, look at this. Let me increase the strength of the effect. and I make zoom, and maybe over darker color will work better. Okay, we have this, and we remove this, and do you see how this is removing? This is created using a simple trick. Simple when you know how to do it, because I spent a lot of time trying to invent and create new things. Just using the ratio. The ratio feature compress the brush tip. Okay, so usually we used to create some kind of perspective effect, but in this case I use to compress and using with a spray, if I remember well. Okay, the spray feature, which is great. If we increase the spray, we increase the amount of the effect. Okay. If we reduce the ratio, for example, the ratio, we have streak. You see the difference? So this is a very good way to create this kind of effect. But be careful, because it's additive. Okay. And you are at the same time learning how to make a real watercolor in some parts. Okay. All right. So we are going to delete this. Maybe just redo everything. I'm reading the comments just a bit. Get these brushes. And for the moment, maybe I show you this. Or this is, for example, another test that I did. And this is copying directly the work of Michael Catman, which is a watercolor artist. And it's also very, very nice to see how we can replicate the effect that an artist uses, and to check if the brushes work properly. And this is probably something that you have seen. Okay. And as you can see here, this is a test, a page test, testing the effects. Okay. So we can do a lot of things with watercolor. We can create a lot of stuff with this effect. So what do you prefer that I paint? And then unpack. Okay. Okay, do you want to paint some flowers or landscape or a portrait? I leave up you landscape, dragons with grass and stuff, sunset. Curious. The paper texture was done just photographing real papers, and using the techniques that I show in the Digital Atelier videos. I teach you how to create your own papers, and that is one of the best material I ever did, because it saves a lot of money if you want to create your own resources. Sunset, landscape. Okay. Let me search photograph from my own to avoid the copyright problems. And Like this, something like this. Okay. I'm gonna copy this, going here. Okay. I'm not doing this in a bigger size because I can crash, because I'm recording, streaming. Okay, reference. So now I have this. This is a landscape photograph from a river. Okay, the option 1. Oh, no. Reference. Okay, reference, reference, or just make some kind of door. I love doors. Jesus. Reference. Okay, so we have 3 photographs, and you have to choose which one do you prefer for the painting. I leave 20 seconds while I'm reading the comments. There's cotton candy. Me too. Disable creamy mode. Make watercolor behave as expected. Okay. The tree and river, trees, tree. I think it's clear. Okay, tree and river has win the battle. Okay, so I'm gonna use this. Let's run here and start to. Okay, just we can just use a brush for drawing this. Usually in watercolor, we are not using a very very hard, no, very soft pencils, because we don't want to have a greasy pencil. Okay, Jesus, I don't have space. Okay, that's for the reference. Okay, that's enough. And gray, dark gray, and start to draw something. I'm not going to do literally. Okay, this is only for a sample. Going to saturate some parts of the tree. No shading in watercolor. We need just only watermarks, some marks to have. Okay, and let me draw a tree around here. Okay, let me invert the tree. Just make this, and now the surface. As you can use, I can use the tilt to create some effects of shading with this kind of pencil, but this is not the case. We need a clean line I'm a newbie. Oh man. Yes, that's true. Because I'm very used to paint with all the entire space. Thanks Ryoto Fury to be 500. Okay. While I'm drawing, I talk a bit this, and we have the river and the other part of the river, some trees. This is this shadow, which is really good. We need to make this a bit. So one question for all the painters and users: how much do you use the tilt feature in your brushes? And I will say you why I'm asking that question. Okay, that's thanks, Peppermint. You are amazing being here and even almost 9 o'clock. Okay, so basically I have all set up. Okay, the green part with the grass, the background, trees, never. Jesus. Then I have to remake some things that I am doing. Okay, let me put this. As you can see, I have changed the ratio. I did it even more a landscape, a panoramic view, but I can fix it easily because I using the digital painting superpowers. So Control T, and we can resize our drawing. Okay, as the paper and the drawing are in separated. Yeah, I think Krita supports tilt in a very good way, and I'm creating some experiments that use a lot of tilt. So stay tuned. And we have something like this. Tap again, just move the reference like with this, okay? Let me check one. Okay, F6 and D8. I think this is quite for painting and to have color. Obviously, if I am in canvas only mode, I can use the right click to select the color and select a tag. Okay, so let's start to create something with the big brushes here. I'm gonna paint green stuff. Let's go. A new tab. Well, it's just only to show the behavior of the brushes, okay? But yes, it's a good advice to put the image, the reference. Okay. One important thing in watercolor is to keep the white parts of an image also. Okay. Have this, and you create this. It's the green. It's in real time. Okay, that's good one to create the base here. Okay, so I start creating this. The greens sends the floor. Okay. Okay, let me check this. It's green. I know I can pick color from here, but I don't like. I want to have the free to change the colors. But usually, if you find this behavior, obviously this is not the right color. It is because I'm using the darken feature. Okay, this is to create more interest in color. But if you want to have fidelity to the color, you can deactivate the darken feature, and then then you have something more accurate. Okay, and in watercolor we usually start from light colors and then to match. Light colors, and then we are increasing the colors. Okay, check. And this one is when you want to create the dried effect over the surface. So if I want to create a dry texture here, I can use this brush, which is like if the watercolor is dried and don't move to match the pigment. Okay, and easily you can create a texture like this, for example. And as you can see, I am improvising. There is no preparing for this, so I can find a lot of yes, for the moment, yes, it's in one layer. I'm not afraid to redo things, or when I have to make a commission or something more elaborated, I use a lot of different layers. Be sure of that. Okay. And you have the white of paper, and this is because you have to keep the brightest part of your image, because you have always time to darken this part of image. Just let me drink something, because I have a focus aiming to my face. Okay. As you can see, there is a darker part here, so I'm using the blue and a bit darker blue. Thanks a lot, but I think okay, this is not the proper effect that we are wanting here, right? We need something more controllable. Even this is not too much controllable. If we want control over watercolor, I created this brush, as I showed you before, and it's in the latest state, erase mode, and I can create straight lines here, and I can apply softer applying more pressure, you can see this edge, but this is a control edge. So I can decide where I go with my brush stroke. Okay. And I overlap this. Okay. But I'm gonna do something that I forget to do, which is remove this a bit. Hola, my wife. Okay. You always put some tape in your paintings, okay? And that helps to frame the picture and also gives you the control. Okay, I need to create these leaves. What is this brush stroke? Okay, let me check. Nothing that can be solved. Okay, darker. As you can see, this is lighter than the photograph, and we don't have to copy exactly the values of this. Okay, and we can start to create the shadows here, but not with this brush, because we want to, this brush is just to fix that. Okay, just a bit, and then blend the edges, and that's it. You have fixed the mistake. Okay, so now we can go to create the darker tree here. Okay, so we use another brush. This one now is this one that create this effect. Okay, but not in green, but reddish or brownish tone. Okay, if you see here, this is a different brush. Okay, we are using, as I said, the brush tip with the subtract, and we use this to create the grain and the remove opacity effect. Okay, so if I increase this brush, I get this kind of bigger grain, as you can see here, and that is because the subtract, this brush tip, is bigger than before. Okay, so now we're trying to define this type. So you can see that this is very big brush, and we can create this kind of effect. Other softwares, other artists uses the hard light and soft light to create watercolor. But I prefer to use the normal mode, because now I can use, for example, a perfect yellow, and I can paint over this, and I'm not worried about the multiply effect. For example, I can paint brighter tones over darker tones. No, Michelle, it's not so complicated. If you are familiar with watercolor, you expect all these behaviors, and everything is explained in the Digital Atelier PDF, explaining the brushes, the typical use for this kind of brush, and all the videos that come with Digital Atelier teach you a lot about how to use the brushes, like the oil painting, pastel, and watercolor, even how to make your own brushes. Okay, so we now have, it's the moment maybe to just maybe something like this, a bit gray over here and over here, and start to create darker darker areas to create contrast. Okay, this will be much simple if I don't explain stuff. But I think the good thing about live streams, direct contact, is precisely that, because I can make a time lapse where you can see all the process from scratch to final piece, but you don't learn anything. And I prefer this kind of for myself. When I watch this kind of shows, I prefer that. And you, what do you prefer? Okay. Well, let's make a look here and start to create some dark areas here. I need more green part here, just a bit like this. I'm going to speed up this a bit. Okay, the green. It's, for example, another way to use layers, because I can use the blender to remove the edges here and there, but I can use another layer and create in a greater mode with this brush. Okay, with this brush and greater. Okay, so now I can paint over a surface and the edges get blended, right? So this is what I'm going to use here to play with a lot of different features here. And okay. Okay, so we have to deal with contrast here, because we are losing the sense of balance in the image. Okay, just here. And if we spot, look at these tiny areas with another color. If we spot this, we can create the illusion of leaves with a tiny brush. And now we start to define this. Okay, as you can see, this is too bright for this area, and we need contrast to make the trees. Well, I think you get the idea. And the idea is to get this and start now to not greater but normal here. Just increase the power. Okay, a bit more. I'm gonna use this a bit rougher. So I need to go faster, definitely. Okay, I'm gonna change this a bit. I'm not talking too much right now because I want to show you something that is relevant. Okay. Okay. Maybe 3 here, part 3, bit blue. And defining edges. And I need some green. Let me check if I can blend this. Something like this. A bit greenish. I think it's different, Michel. Krita is not rebel and it's not trying to be rebel. But you can ask Bodywin or other developers just if they think it deserves the time and effort to create something emulating dynamics. This is only a way for digital painting, I think. Okay. Just have to make some leaves here. Whoops. Have to fix this a bit. And this is what I'm trying to show, that I can paint with bright yellow and I can create some different effects. I'm not constrained to only a color. I can paint here, and if I need darker shadows here, well, maybe it's too much. So I use the Ctrl C, which in Watercolor we can use that. But that's one of the advantages of digital painting. Okay. Okay, now I'm gonna paint some beautiful oranges now. It's more like golden and combined with greens. And I'm going to reinforce here darker areas. I'm gonna just change this. Cleaning some. I have to make something here. And I can use this. This is another brush to create good edges and also water effect. So instead of green, I'm gonna use the more warm. Okay, but I wanna create the tree effect here, tree effect over there, tree effect. Oops. The behavior of this brush is if you press harder, you get something like this, and if you press slide, you get fine line. And this is good, for example, if we want to create, imagine, guess what? Jesus. So now I need something here. Let me check if I can remove some parts of the color. Oh, this has to be changed. I need to, now it's in another layer. Okay, Control E to blend these layers. And now we can just erase part of the image. Okay, so maybe if you want to create some brighter areas, just use that. I'm not gonna do it. Just green, blue. Okay. So I need to define the trees much better. Okay, but this. Okay. Is Walthera around here? Hi, Walthera. Nice to see you here. And I want to define this a bit more. Okay. And I want to define this tree a little more. So I'm going to create contrast. And now I need the color for this tree. And I want to add some bits of light on the bark. Okay, and let's try to make some brighter areas here. Now I selected orange. Now I need this. As you can see, this is not spreading the color as well as the other brushes, but create another kind of effects. Okay, so I can forget this little trees in the shadow. Some hard brush strokes, just giving a bit of texture. Let me reinforce this part. Let me just use the green, a bit greener, and define much better. Okay. Darker green. And we now are gonna blend this. Okay. Just a bit. We don't need to blend everything, right? Because it can have the too much soft effect. Okay, I'm adding a bit of green to reinforce contrast here. Do you want to know anything else about watercolors in Digital Atelier, or do you have doubts about the set or whatever? Because I think I will read the comments, and if I find something that need to be answered, I will answer in private, or creating a video. By the way, have you seen the first video in Krita channel created by me? I hope you like it. Let's make the flow increases just to paint and not hard to. Okay, so basically we have this kind of image, which is not masterpiece of watercolor, but you have seen the different effects you can achieve with this. Also, you can paint over dry and at the same time having the okay, just a bit here, light, bit contrast. Of course, I can define more the edges and start to creating what I think it's a good finished paint. But I think this is not to my, I don't like it how it is, so I'm changing this a bit. I create dark part here, and I'm going to bring the lights and make some leaves around here. There's darker too much. I think I can remove this part of the image. Oh, remove was here. Okay, but not that much. Just only a bit to create this. Just remove this part. Okay, so I need to refine all this mesh. But in watercolor, this will be a good study, but not a good final piece. in my case, this will go to the trash can. But let's try to save it. Okay. Basically, what do we have here? We have a lot of dark values when here the flow option. Flow option, it's a third slider that you can just put in the interface, changing the toolbar. Okay, so you can change the toolbar and add in brushes and stuff. You search for in the filter section option slider, and obviously nothing is going to appear here, but let me check this. Slider does. Okay, so we have one slider. If we check for slider, you find them and you put like this. Okay, and everything is applied. Okay, basically what we are going to do, just to finish the painting and the streaming, is to add some leaves. Okay, just to go here, and we need a very, or you can use the particle. Let's check if I use the particle. Well, it's not bad. We're just creating a bit of mesh to create the illusion. Because look at this, if I use the particle and keep brushing, I delete what I have painted. Okay, so if I go here, I can use a dark blue to create the shadow part of the image, and I can continue painting here. I'm creating a vignette effect. Okay, just here, and start to insist in this part, and you create this kind of vignette that you may like or not. Let's delete this and clean a bit the painting. Obviously we can use selection. Okay, using selections, everything is much cleaner. But you can see the effect of darkening a bit. So you have the base color, which is a dark area, and now you create the brighter parts of the image, and you can do it using the particle or just painting them. Okay, we can just paint them, and we're gonna use slightly blue. We're trying to define and press harder, but non-painting. Okay, this is not what we want. We want spread the brightness of the image. Okay, so now I am just creating leaves here and there. Okay, and you see how even the leaves have a brighter part or more pigmented part here and there. Okay, and this is how we create the sense of foliage. We just paint here, there, and refine, and even we can, I think we can create more brighter part here. And now I'm improvising. I'm painting to my taste. So as I see here, maybe I can darken a bit this part. Okay, let me check in green, maybe violet, to have a cool effect here and there of trees. Because if we paint, not too much. No, it's this one. Just make a bit darker. Okay, bit darker. No, I'm gonna keep this leaf because I like it. I prefer to paint this way. Okay. Let me check if this works or not. Darker part here. Nah. I'm gonna just increase this part a bit. Let me check what can be improved. Just a bit here. Now I need darker parts here. This flying palette is the minimal size selector that we can use with Shift N. And I have changed to N because I find it simpler and easy for my hands. Okay, so we are just finishing this part. Maybe this part needs a bit more work here. Just around here. So I can just make a selection. Select invert. Invert selection. I have cleaned the, well, I make more like, no. I'm going to remove some parts. Invert selection and just clean. Control Shift A to remove the selection. What? Maybe a bit texture here in the foreground. Some tricks. Oh my god, I remove it. Okay, and this. I love these purples in shadow, and I like the variance in color. So I think I need some, yeah, some spines here and there, but in the main area. And let me check. Do you want to spend just 10 minutes more and I finish the painting? I think it's good enough for Changing a bit the tones here, adding some interest, and let's play a bit with some sticks here around. Maybe some grass around here with some leaves. You could saturate with the grass from behind, maybe, I don't know. Okay, saturate with the grass from behind. As you can see, this tiny bits of painting helps the painting, but we don't we can use too much refined painting in watercolor, because then we lose the watercolor effect. This is more like wash or something similar. Okay, we are going to finish the painting with some adjust here and there. If you have questions, you can ask in the chat. Just a bit here, or not too much edges. Okay, just to find this. This is like a place where light is coming from, and it's not obvious in the picture. Maybe it's from my imagination or my own impression of the photograph. I'm refining these parts. And then if this is too much stronger, I can refine this with just blend a bit the edges, a bit here and around here and a bit here. And I like to blend the edges with big brushes. Look at this. We can create like real watercolor effects, and it's totally random. So we can keep this, or okay. And if we find that it's not good, we just Control C, Control Zeta. Oh, I have to. Okay, maybe more or less this. Dark blues for the shadow. I'm reading a bit. Okay, now if you want to modify some parts of the image, using digital tools allow us to combine traditional media with more digital media. Okay, so we can use, for example, an airbrush to create a darkened area here, or we can use the addition mode to increase the lighting. Okay, so you can do whatever you want to do in digital painting, because the most important is the final result. Okay, so you can add a bit of lighting here, and using yellowish tone to create this kind of yellowish lighting here. It's not in the photograph, but we can add it. Okay, if this part is too much bright, we can use Addition. You can use overlay to add contrast and modify the colors a bit. Okay. What about charcoal? Charcoal. What? Irina is asking about charcoal. This is watercolor, but charcoal, it's really interesting. Maybe I have something similar here. If I want to make charcoal, I use the pastels. For example, I will use this. Let me check in a new image. And I will use, no, not charcoal, not this one. I will use this one. But look at this. I will keep the brush tip. And I will change the pattern, which control the texture. I would use fine sandpaper. Okay, same technique. I filter this way, and fine sandpaper. Let me find this. This was the painting. Fine sandpaper, and just something like this. And obviously we can change the color of paper, and we can start to paint with the chalk. Okay. And the good thing is that uses the tilt, and we have this little variation in softness, because we are using this brush tip, which has some grainy in the design, but it's basically a triangle. Okay. Okay, so if you want to draw something, for example, you want to create something, pressing it slightly, you create slight brush strokes, and harder, and you get this kind of much harder brush strokes. And you can also shading perfectly from dark to bright areas, even barely visible. Irina, is that solving your question? Okay. Control S to shave, and now it's saved. Well, I think this could cover the basics of watercolor with Digital Atelier. I think I have explained a lot of things that you can already use to make your own brushes, and to make public, or to share with the Krita users if you want, and get more interested in the power of Krita as a digital painting tool. So this is the end. I'm going to read all the comments, and I hope you like the streaming. So let me know in the comments section. In the chat is good, but in the comments it's even better, because I can read wherever I go. If you like or have ideas to more streamings, just let me know, and I will be how to cover all those needs. So thanks a lot for watching, and have a nice weekend. And the final step is to sign the work. Okay. Okay. Now